Coming up on this edition of Ableton On Air, this is the Ableton On Air News Brief. We talk about the airline crash in Toronto that everybody seemed to survive, and we also talk about the cold weather snap that's been happening all across America as of lately. This is the Ableton On Air News Brief. All that and much more when Ableton On Air starts right now. Welcome to this edition of Ableton On Air, the one and only program that focuses on the needs, concerns, and achievements of the differently able. I've always been your host, Lawrence Seiler. Arlene's not here today. On this Ableton On Air News Brief, we talk about the airline crash that recently happened in Toronto, Canada, where everybody seemed to survive with injuries, and we also talk about the cold weather snap that has been happening, and also tips on cold weather and what to do if you're a special need. So let's get to it. So recently there was an airline crash in Canada, in Toronto. According to the New York Times, all on board survived after plane crashes and overturns at Toronto Airport. A window seat passenger, this is according to the New York Times. You go to NewYorkTimes.com. A window seat passenger described the plane as skidding on its side and the passenger found himself upside down. At least 18 people were injured, officials said. Here's the latest on the crash. A Delta Airlines jet attempting to land at Toronto Pearson International Airport amid strong winds and drifting snow crashed and flipped over on its side on the tarmac on Monday afternoon. This past Monday afternoon, finally coming to a rest with its belly up and with at least one wing showing off, or one wing off. Despite the crash landing, all 80 people aboard Flight 4819, that's Flight 4819 from Minneapolis, were evacuated. Photos and video, if you go to NewYorkTimes.com, photos and video show flames and black smoke billowing from the plane and passengers coming out of the rear doors. They walked away on the snow-covered tarmac, and firefighters hosed down the aircraft. At least 18 people were injured, according to Delta. They included one person with critical but not non-life-threatening injuries and was airlifted to a trauma center, and a child who was critical but not life-threatening condition. Others with minor or moderate injuries, officials said that 22 of the passengers were Canadians. Peter Korkoff, Koukov, 28, a professional skier from Colorado, was on the flight, and nothing seemed amiss during the plane. Amiss during the plane's final descent. The second that the wheels hit the ground and everything happened, Mr. Korkoff said in an interview on Monday night. The next thing he knew, they were sideways, and he said that the plane had skidded on its right side, and he was sitting at the window on the seat seat on the left. So they saw sparks and flames, and it touched down to the ground, they said. They ended up completely upside down, and passengers unbuckled pretty fast and lowered themselves to the floor, and which was on the ceiling. People were panicking. The Bombardier CRJ-900, operated by a Delta subsidiary, Endeavor Air, crashed around 2:45 p.m., according to the Federal Aviation Administration. Delta later said that the crash occurred around 2:15. The crash is likely to create chaos for days to come in Canada. The airport, and the country's largest and busiest, was already reeling from delays and cancellations caused by a series of winter storms. The investigation is underway. The Transportation and Safety Board of Canada will lead the investigation, officials say, and the National Transportation and Safety Board said that it is leading a team of American investigators to assist Canadian authorities. The weather at the airport, there were strong winds and west about 29 miles per hour and gusts about 35 miles per hour at the time of the crash, according to the Environment Canada's Weather Service. It is also important to note that there was drifting snow in Toronto, which is much like Ontario, and it was hit by 2 snowstorms in the past few days. Endeavor Air, wholly owned the Delta subsidiary, operates a small planes on shorter routes for the airline. It operates 121 CRJ-900s configured with seats for 70 to 76 passengers. CRJ-900s have been in service around the world for more than 2 decades and have a solid safety record, according to data from CIRICUM, which is an aviation data company. The series of accidents, the crash on Monday, has added to a spate of aviation accidents and have rattled travelers in recent weeks. On January 29th, an American Airlines jet and an Army helicopter collided over the Potomac River, leaving no survivors. 2 days later, a small medical plane crashed, killing all 6 and 1 passenger on the ground. All 80 passengers and crew members on board the Delta Airlines flight from Minneapolis that crashed and flipped over Toronto's airport are all expected to survive. 2 passengers described what seemed to be routine descent suddenly turned them upside down. The crash in Delta Airlines on Monday afternoon exacerbated travelers' disruptions at Toronto Pearson International Airport, which had already juggled a slew of flight delays. Nearly 400 flights have been canceled at Pearson Monday night, and 300 were delayed at the airport, according to FlightAware, an aviation tracking website. Here's what we know. Here's more that we know about the crash. The Association of Flight Attendants, which represents about 50,000 flight attendants at 20 airlines, including Delta, asked its members not to publicly speculate on the causes of the crash. The Pictures and videos of the incident are intense but may trigger reactions for crews across the industry and our families, and union said in a statement. This is according to a statement by someone from the Flight Attendant Association. So that's about the crash, and our condolences. Well, nobody passed away, so I'm glad everybody is okay. So let's get to the weather. Kentucky died snowstorm. Okay. This according to Kentucky News and Louisville Public Media. Kentucky continues to recover efforts from devastating weekend floods, according to the National Weather Service, and is predicting snowstorm Tuesday night. Kentucky agencies are preparing for heavy snowfall Tuesday night, and even recovery efforts begin after a devastating weekend of flooding that killed at least 12 people, prompting more than 1,000 water rescues. During a press conference this past week, Governor Andy Beshear and state agencies are expecting eastern, central, and western parts of the state to be hit hardest. With all this weather that they have seen, they are worried, according to Beshear. And the heaviest snowfall can happen around 9 a.m. Tuesday, this week and next week, and around 5 a.m. in Louisville. Up to 4 inches more are expected. With the snow brings dangers, including the potential of mudslides, Beshear said, and low wind chills expected to accompany the snow. On Thursday and Friday will make a bad situation worse. Beshear recommended those who do not have reliable heat can find another option as soon as possible. If you cannot safely power your home in the middle of this week, you need to be looking for shelter. And Kentucky is setting up winter shelters. There are dangers and cold dangers and temperatures are even more pressing to many being displaced by the flood. Water left from the weekend rain is likely to freeze, adding to black ice and dangers. 14 deaths have been attributed to the most recent round of severe weather, and as of this past Tuesday, 12 of those were caused by flooding across the state, according to people in the area. And as of this past Tuesday, more than 3,100 people are without power, according to the Kentucky Emergency Services. More than 15,000 people are without water, and more than 53,000 are under boil water notice advisories, according to Kentucky Emergency Services. Dozen of wastewater systems are continue to have limited operations and systems, according to officials in Jackson and Thelma, remain offline. And for more information on the weather, you can. This is coming from. This is coming from WEKU, which is part of NPR of Kentucky. And if you are dealing with winter weather, obviously Vermont also has winter weather. There are several tips for people with special needs. Let's go over some of them if you're here in Vermont. People with special needs can prepare for winter weather by dressing warmly, having emergency supplies, and planning transportation. Dressing warmly. Please wear multiple layers and loose-fitting warm winter clothing. Wear a hat to reduce heat from your head. Cover your mouth to protect your lungs, and wear insulated boots and gloves. Avoid wearing cotton when doing strenuous outdoor activities. Emergency supplies. Stock emergency supplies. Install battery-powered carbon monoxide and smoke detectors. Pack dry clothing. Pack a two-way radio. Pack waterproof matches. And pack fire starters. Plan ahead for accessible transportation. Know the location and availability of more than one facility if you are dependent on dialysis and other life-sustaining treatment. Other tips: sign up for local alerts and warnings. Inform your local support network where you keep emergency supplies. Check on relatives and neighbors and friends, particularly if they are elderly or live alone. Some disabling conditions may limit sensory ability to maintain body heat, and particularly be particularly vigilant about low temperatures. Wear multiple layers of clothing, including a scarf on your neck and hat and lined boots and 2 pairs of socks. Winter preparedness tips for people with disabilities. You can also, this is coming from another website, but I'll give you the, okay, here we go. So, according to this, disability.gov. If you are in a wheelchair and accustomed to heavy, strenuous wheeling, please be careful through the snow. Don't deal with added exertion that could lead to a heart attack or stroke. Freezing rain can also stick to surfaces such as canes, walkers, forearm under the harness, and consider getting boots for your dog's paws if you have a seeing eye dog or an assistive dog. Remember, the dog can suffer from hypothermia and frostbite. Get a dog coat under the harness and consider getting boots for the paws. And have a blanket in your vehicle for the dog. The medical, register with the medical or social needs registries if your community provides the service. Home care attendant, home care aide, visiting nurse, and familiar yourself with home care agency emergency care plan. And the last couple of things. If you receive dialysis or other medical treatment, find out from your provider the emergency plan and where the backup site is located. If you rely on medical equipment with batteries, please make sure you have a portable generator for emergency power and follow the manufacturer's direction for safe operation. Check with your local fire and building officials for regulations governing the generator and fuel use. Ask your utility company if the medical equipment qualifies you for life-sustaining equipment as an equipment customer. If you rely on oxygen, talk to your vendor about emergency replacements. And this puts an end to this edition of the Ableton On Air News Brief. I'm Lawrence Seiler. See you next time.